The breaking point, the Nexus station, hung like a glittering jewel in the void between star systems, its massive rings slowly rotating around a central hub that housed the most important diplomatic facility in known space. For 18 months, this station had been the site of the most crucial peace negotiations in galactic history. But today, everything was about to change. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat perfectly still in her chair, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the latest proposal from the Galactic Council. Her weathered hands remained folded on the polished table, betraying none of the anger burning in her chest. At 62, she had spent her entire career in diplomatic service, but she had never encountered such systematic disrespect disguised as cooperation. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, designed to accommodate the wildly different physiologies of 17 distinct alien species. The air was carefully filtered and temperature controlled, while gravity generators created comfortable zones for each delegation. The Saurian Empire representatives basked under heat lamps, their scales glinting bronze and gold. The crystalline beams from the hegemony reflected the chamber's lights in prismatic displays. The insectoid hive mind delegates clustered together, their compound eyes constantly scanning the room. Dr. Marcus Chon leaned forward slightly, his tablet displaying real-time translations of the alien communications. As the teen xenobiologist, he had learned to read the subtle signs of contempt in alien body language. The way the Saurians flicked their tongues dismissively, how the crystalline beings dimmed their natural luminescence when humans spoke, the agitated clicking of the insectoid delegates whenever human proposals were discussed. Captain Sarah Mitchell maintained her military bearing despite wearing civilian clothes for the negotiations. Her sharp blue eyes constantly assessed the room, cataloging threats and escape routes. As the human military liaison, she had access to information that would have shocked the alien delegates. But her orders were clear: observe, protect, and wait. High Counselor Thexron of the Saurian Empire rose from his heated platform, his 7-foot frame casting a long shadow across the chamber. His voice carried the authority of a species that had ruled star systems for millennia. The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision regarding the human question, he announced, his forked tongue tasting the air with satisfaction. Elena felt Dr. Chon tense beside her. The human question had been the subject of increasingly hostile debate for months. What had started as trade, negotiations had gradually transformed into something far more sinister. Speaker Veltara of the Hive Mind stepped forward, her multiple arms weaving complex patterns as she spoke. The Council has developed the Guided Development Program, she announced, her voice carrying the collective will of billions of insectoid minds. This program will ensure the proper integration of humanity into galactic civilization. The holographic display updated, showing a detailed breakdown of the program. Elena's blood ran cold as she read the terms. Human military forces would be reduced by 80%. Earth's government would be replaced by a council-appointed administration. Human colonies would be redistributed among the various alien species for proper management. Human technology development would be strictly regulated and monitored. Admiral Korath of the Crystalline Hegemony added his harmonic voice to the discussion. The program recognizes that humanity, despite their recent achievements, remains a young and unpredictable species. Guidance from more experienced civilizations will prevent the chaos that often accompanies rapid technological development. Dr. Chun's tablet chimed softly with an incoming message. His face paled as he read the encrypted text, then he discreetly tapped Elena's arm twice, their prearranged signal for immediate evacuation protocols. Elena stood slowly, her movement causing a ripple of attention through the chamber. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of her years in service and the authority of her position. The human delegation requests a 30-minute recess to consider this proposal. Dexron's eyes narrowed. There is nothing to consider. The Council has decided. Your role is to implement our decision. Our role, Elena said carefully, is to negotiate terms that serve the interests of all parties. This proposal serves no human interests whatsoever. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices. The saurians hissed their displeasure. The crystalline beings rang with discordant tones. The insectoid delegates clicked and shittered in. Agitation. Speaker Valtara raised her primary arms for silence. Ambassador Vasquez, you misunderstand the nature of these proceedings. This is not a negotiation between equals. Humanity has been granted the privilege of participating in galactic civilization. That privilege comes with responsibilities. Elena felt something snap inside her chest. 18 months of condescension, insults, and systematic dismissal had finally reached their breaking point. She activated her personal recording device, knowing that every word would be transmitted to Earth within minutes. I want to make sure I understand correctly, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. The Galactic Council is informing humanity that we have no choice but to accept the dissolution of our government, the occupation of our worlds, and the reduction of our people to a supervised species under alien control. Admiral Koroth's crystalline form flashed with irritation. You persist in using inflammatory language. This is guidance, not occupation. Administration, not control. Elena smiled, and there was something in that smile that made Captain Mitchell straighten in her chair. Dr. Chun, would you please activate the documentation protocols? Dr. Chun's fingers flew across his tablet. Throughout the chamber, holographic displays appeared showing 18 months of recorded negotiations. Every insult, every dismissive gesture, every contemptuous remark was there in perfect detail. The human delegation has been maintaining complete records of these negotiations, Elena announced. Every species represented here has spent the past 18 months treating humanity as a collection of primitive children who need to be managed. You have dismissed our proposals without consideration, mocked our diplomatic efforts, and now you demand our complete submission. The recordings played automatically, showing highlight reels of the most insulting moments. Thexran calling humans barely evolved primates. Speaker Veltara referring to human civilization as a brief experiment in chaos. Admiral Koroth suggesting that human art and culture were primitive attempts at sophistication. Elena continued speaking as the recordings played. You have made your position very clear. You see humanity as a species that exists for your convenience. Our worlds are resources to be redistributed. Our people are problems to be managed. Our independence is a threat to be eliminated. The alien delegates began to realize that their private conversations had also been recorded. Comments made in what they thought were secure channels, dismissive remarks shared between species, plans discussed in languages they assumed humans couldn't understand. The human delegation wishes to thank the Galactic Council for clarifying the true nature of these negotiations, Elena said, her voice carrying a finality that made the chamber fall silent. We now understand that there is no point in continuing discussions with species who have already decided our fate. She began gathering her materials, her movements deliberate and calm. Dr. Chun and Captain Mitchell followed her lead, packing their equipment with practiced efficiency. Thexran's voice cracked like a whip. You cannot simply leave. The Council has not dismissed you. Elena paused at the chamber's exit. High Counselor, you have spent 18 months making it clear that humanity has no voice in galactic affairs. You cannot simultaneously claim authority over our actions and deny us the right to make our own decisions. Speaker Valtara's arms moved in agitated patterns. This is a childish tantrum. You will return when you realize the consequences of defying the Council. Perhaps, Elena said, but we will return as equals, or we will not return at all. The human delegation left the chamber, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Behind them, the alien delegates sat in stunned confusion. No species had ever walked out of council negotiations. The very idea was unthinkable. As they walked through the station's corridors, Captain Mitchell activated her secure communicator. "Phoenix Protocol is active," she said quietly. "All human assets are to implement immediate extraction procedures." Dr. Chun was already transmitting the negotiation records to Earth. "The documentation is being distributed to every human colony and research station. The galaxy will see exactly what the Council thinks of us." Elena felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The pretense was over. The careful diplomacy was finished. For 18 months, she had endured insults and contempt while trying to find a peaceful solution. Now the galaxy would learn what happened when you treated humanity as an enemy. Across the station, human personnel began their carefully rehearsed evacuation procedures. Human merchants closed their businesses. Human technicians shut down their equipment. Human researchers encrypted their databases and prepared to depart. The Nexus station's alien administrators didn't notice the exodus at first. Humans had always been quiet and efficient, easy to overlook. But within hours, critical systems began failing. The station's main computer networks started displaying error messages. The life support systems began running diagnostics that never completed. The transportation grid experienced mysterious delays. Elena stood in the observation deck of the human transport ship, watching the Nexus station shrink in the distance. She knew that within days, the alien delegates would realize the true scope of human integration into galactic infrastructure. They would learn that their dismissive attitude toward primitive human technology had blinded them to their own dependence on human innovation. The galaxy was about to discover that the species they had treated as junior partners had actually become the foundation of their civilization. And now that foundation was being withdrawn, the real negotiations were about to begin. The galaxy's reckonings 6 weeks after the human delegation walked out of the Nexus station, the galaxy was experiencing its first taste of what life without humanity actually meant. The initial amusement and dismissive comments from the alien species had gradually transformed into growing concern, then alarm, and finally desperate panic. High Counselor Thexron stood in his private chambers aboard the Saurian flagship, studying reports that painted an increasingly dire picture. The massive vessel, once a symbol of Saurian military might, was now operating at 60% efficiency. The quantum drive systems, originally designed by human engineers 50 years ago, were experiencing cascade failures that his best technicians couldn't understand, let alone repair. "Status report," he commanded, his voice lacking its usual authority. General Vexstar, his military advisor, approached with the characteristic hesitancy that had become common among the Saurian command structure. "The situation continues to deteriorate, High Counselor. We have lost contact with 17 colonial outposts. Their communication systems have gone dark." Thexron's tail lashed in frustration. "Are they under attack?" "No, sir. The systems are simply shutting down. Our engineers believe it's connected to the human-designed communication relays. They appear to be implementing some kind of automatic termination protocol." Across the galaxy, on the crystal world of Luxara Prime, Admiral Korath was facing his own crisis. The crystalline hegemony had always prided itself on technological superiority, but their most advanced systems were revealing a troubling truth. The beautiful, prismatic displays that had impressed alien visitors for generations were flickering and dying. Technical, harmonist Sire approached her commander with frequencies that conveyed deep concern. "Admiral, the quantum resonance chambers are experiencing systematic failures. The harmonic frequency generators are no longer responding to our commands." Korath's crystalline form dimmed with worry. "How is this possible?" "These systems are purely crystalline technology." "That's what we believed, sir." But detailed analysis reveals that the core processing matrices use human-designed quantum chips. These chips are somehow communicating with external sources and implementing shutdown sequences we never programmed. The realization struck Koroth like a discordant note. The crystalline hegemony's technological marvels weren't purely their own creation. For decades, they had been incorporating human innovations, while dismissing the source as primitive. Now those same innovations were turning against them. On the hive world of Sectara, Speaker Valtara found herself in the unprecedented position of experiencing individual panic within the collective consciousness. The hive mind had always functioned as a perfect unity, but the failing infrastructure was creating disconnections that threatened their entire civilization. Drone engineer Zikta transmitted urgent data patterns to the speaker. The biomechanical interfaces are rejecting our commands. The human-designed neural networks that facilitate our collective consciousness are experiencing systematic degradation. Valtara's multiple arms trembled with the effort of maintaining connection to the fragmenting hive mind. Can we repair the networks? The human engineers who designed them implemented multiple layers of encrypted protocols. We never learned to access the core systems because the humans maintained them for us. Without human technicians, we cannot prevent the cascade failures. The crisis was not limited to military systems. On the agricultural world of Verdania, the botanical collective was watching their planet die. The terraforming systems that had transformed the world into a garden paradise were shutting down systematically. The atmospheric processors, the soil nutrient distributors, the weather control networks, all human-designed, all failing simultaneously. Director Felix sent desperate messages to the Galactic Council, but the communication networks were experiencing their own problems. The quantum entanglement arrays that enabled instantaneous communication across the galaxy were controlled by human-designed routing protocols that were systematically disconnecting alien worlds from the network. Emergency Council Session, Nexus. Stationed the great chamber that had hosted the failed peace negotiations was now filled with panic and desperation. The alien delegates who had confidently dismissed humanity 6 weeks ago were now facing the collapse of their civilizations. High Counselor Thexran's voice cracked as he addressed the assembly. The situation is worse than we initially understood. The humans didn't just withdraw their personnel. They activated some kind of systematic shutdown of their technology. Speaker Valtara's collective voice wavered with individual discord. Our analysis suggests this was planned for decades. Every human innovation, every technological collaboration, every system they helped us develop contains hidden protocols that allow them to disable our infrastructure remotely. Admiral Koroth's crystalline form flickered with alarm. They turned their own technology into a weapon against us. While we were dismissing them as primitive, they were embedding control systems into the foundation of our civilization. Trade Minister Galvin of the Mercantile Union provided the economic analysis that sent shockwaves through the chamber. The financial implications are catastrophic. Human trade represented 47% of total galactic commerce. Their withdrawal has triggered market collapses across 17 systems. The Verdanian agricultural crisis alone threatens food security for 6 billion beings. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices, each species demanding solutions that didn't exist. The Saurians called for military action against humanity, but their own fleets were crippled by the same technological failures. The crystalline hegemony suggested diplomatic overtures, but the communication networks necessary for such efforts were controlled by human systems. Dr. Zephion, the Council's chief xenobiologist, presented the most disturbing analysis of all. We have been monitoring human space for signs of weakness or collapse. Instead, we have discovered that human civilization is completely self-sufficient. They have been preparing for total isolation for decades. The holographic display showed images from the edges of human space. Massive defensive platforms that had been dismissed as research stations were revealing themselves as military installations. Human colonies that had appeared to be struggling were actually thriving in isolation. The entire human sphere of influence was operating at full capacity without any external support. They don't need us, Dr. Zephian continued. But we need them, desperately. The realization settled over the chamber like a physical weight. The species who had spent decades treating humanity as junior partners were now facing the reality of their complete dependence on human innovation. First, Secretary Maranta of the Diplomatic Corps stood to address the assembly. 3 minor species have already sent secret envoys to human space, requesting separate peace negotiations. The Felinian Consortium, the Aquatic Collective, and the Mineral Extraction Guild are all attempting to re-establish trade relationships outside of Council authority. The chamber fell silent. The dissolution of the Galactic Council was beginning. High Counselor Vexron made a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 weeks ago. We must formally request negotiations with the human government, not as their superiors offering guidance, but as equals seeking mutual benefit. The word equals seemed to stick in his throat, but the alternative was the complete collapse of galactic civilization. Earth. Presidential Office President Maria Santos sat in her office reading the latest intelligence reports from the galaxy. The woman who had authorized the Phoenix Protocol 6 weeks ago was now watching its effects ripple across known space. The reports painted a picture of systematic collapse that was both satisfying and sobering. The Galactic Council has formally requested negotiations, announced Secretary of State David Park. They're offering to recognize human sovereignty and establish mutual trade agreements. President Santos looked up from her reports. Their tone? Completely different from before. The previous demands for submission have been replaced with requests for cooperation. They're using words like partnership and mutual benefit instead of guidance and administration. Defense Secretary Jennifer Walsh added her own analysis. Our deep space monitoring stations confirm that alien military forces are experiencing systematic failures. Their own dependence on our technology has effectively neutralized their ability to threaten us. President Santos nodded slowly. The question now is whether we're willing to save them from the consequences of their own arrogance. Ambassador Elena Vasquez, who had returned to Earth after the walkout, was present for the discussion. The recordings from the negotiations have been distributed throughout human space. Our people understand exactly what the aliens thought of. U.S. Any relationship going forward will need to acknowledge that history. President Santos stood and walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful city below. Prepare a response to the Galactic Council. We're willing to establish new negotiations, but this time they'll be conducted on human terms. The message that went out to the galaxy was simple but revolutionary. Humanity would consider re-establishing relationships with alien species, but only as equals. The days of human subservience were over. The galaxy had learned what happened when you underestimated humanity, and now they would learn what it meant to treat humans with respect. The age of human dominance in galactic affairs was about to begin, not through conquest or aggression, but through the simple demonstration that civilizations built on mutual dependence must be based on mutual respect. The galaxy's reckoning was complete. The real negotiations could finally begin. Asterisk.